Breaking in the last hour. Not guilty. That is what the jury decided in the trial of Brett Hankison. Thanks for joining us here at 4. I'm Kristen Goodwillie.
And I'm Shay McAllister. The jury began deliberations at lunchtime after 5 days of witness testimony and 3 hours of deliberations. The former LMPD detective was acquitted of all charges. Right now, we have a live team coverage on the case with Grace McKenna and Heather Fontaine at the Judicial Center in downtown Louisville. They were there for the verdict.
Under verdict form number 1, we, the jury, found the defendant, Brett Hankison, not guilty of wanton endangerment in the first degree under instruction number 4, as that applies to Cody Etherton.
That's the ruling. After more than 24 witnesses, 5 days of testimony, the jury ruling Brett Hankison is not guilty. We begin our team coverage with Grace McKenna, who's been covering the trial since last week. Now, Grace, what did it feel like in the courtroom when that not guilty verdict was read?
Oh, Kristen, it took just about 3 hours for the jury to deliver that not guilty verdict. I was sitting in the courtroom, and when we listened today, as each side made their final pitch about whether or not Brett Hankison committed a crime, defense attorney Stu Matthews argued Hankison was trying to save his brother officers. He reminded the jury no one else faces charges in the shooting and said Hankison was just doing his job. Whaley for the Commonwealth said it was Hankison's job to know what he was shooting at and where his bullets went. She argued he couldn't have seen through the sliding glass doors or window, and other officers didn't make the same choice he did.
People say, well, he couldn't have seen those muzzle flashes. Well, nobody can say what Brett Hankison saw or didn't see. Only Brett Hankison can tell you that.
They didn't start shooting in revenge. Well, our fellow officer was shot, so we need to shoot back.
Matthews' statements lasted about 25 minutes, whereas Whaley took close to an hour. Kristen Shea, I was in the courtroom as that verdict was read. The jury was brought into the room. Everybody who was sitting there was told not to have any outbursts or reactions, so we didn't see any of that, but Breonna Taylor's family was seated right in front of me. You could definitely tell that they were upset. Back to you all.
All right, Grace, thank you. Remember, Hankison's charges are not directly related to the death of Breonna Taylor. He was charged with 3 counts of wanton endangerment for the 3 people living in the apartment next door. But Breonna's family has been following the case closely, and so has Heather Fontaine. Heather is live right now, catching the reaction right after the verdict was read. Heather, what can you tell us?
Well, when it comes to reaction, Shay, Breonna Taylor's family seemed visibly disappointed and defeated. But I want to talk a little bit about those wanton endangerment charges and what that means. What this jury really had to decide was whether or not Brett Hankison was aware of any unjustifiable and substantial risk and then consciously disregarded that risk anyway. So what does that mean specifically in this case? Well, I can tell you that jurors listened to testimony and heard evidence for 5 days. And at the end of it all, they had to ask themselves, was Hankison aware of the risk and disregard it when he fired his gun the night of March 13th, 2020? And did he create a substantial danger that could result in death or serious physical injury to those living in apartment 3? Based on the not guilty verdict today, it's clear jurors decided that he was not wantonly endangering anyone that night. I asked his attorney if he thought Brett Hankison taking the stand had anything to do with the verdict in his favor. Do you think his testimony and him taking the stand had a lot to do with the verdict today?
I don't know, but I would say absolutely. I mean, from day one, he's been going to take the stand. A lot of lawyers don't think clients should take the stand. I believe they absolutely should. And I think he did himself well, so I was pleased with it.
Remember, this case had nothing to do with the death of Breonna Taylor, but her family was in the courtroom today. Take a look at this. Her mother, sister, and other family members walked out after the verdict looking defeated. They did not wish to comment. The prosecution also didn't say much, except for the fact that they respect the jury's decision. Now, 15 jurors listened to this case throughout the last week and a half. It was made up of 10 men, 5 women, and 3 people of color. But remember, only 12 jurors went into that deliberation room. Reporting live from the Judicial Center, I'm Heather Fontaine, WHAS 11 on your side.
Heather, thank you. You can catch up on the full Brett Hankison trial right now on our website, WHAS11.com, or on the WHAS 11 app.